I'm not saying that these players need to shape up or ship out, but I'm almost saying that. With some of them, that is true. Some of them, if they don't come bringing the heat straight up, they aren't going to see the field. That's the players that I'm talking about. They've got to bring it every day from now until the end of the season if they want to be Michigan football players that are productive in uniform and seeing playing time. Let's talk about those players, 15 of them, on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
For the second time today, we are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. I was going to do 10 players, and I just kept writing names of guys that need, this is it, man. So there's a couple in here, maybe one, two. I'm looking at two people who are currently starters. There's others that are bandied about quite a bit. There's names that if you're a Michigan football casual, you don't even know that they exist. But they all have one thing in common. They've got to get it together this year. Otherwise, it ain't going to look that good for them at this point. So we'll do 5 per segment. Let's go ahead and start on offense. I have 6 offensive players, but we will do 5 to start us out. Number one, it's funny. This is a corollary. If you go to the other Tuesday episode of my potential All-Americans, I started out with quarterback. I said Bryce Underwood. I'm also going to start off with quarterback, and I'm going to say Mikey Keene. Because Michigan loves Mikey Keene, right? He was the guy that they wanted. Others wanted some other different guys, and, it was what it was. A lot of people wanted Daquan Finn. Certainly, we were all looking at Miller Moss. That was initially a target, but I think with Bryce Underwood coming in, it kind of changed the trajectory of that. And so with that in mind, Mikey Keene, man, you've got to do it. You have to do, and you can't just come in, win the starting job. You've got to bring it consistently every week, because you are going to have Bryce Underwood breathing down your neck in a way that J.J. McCarthy wasn't necessarily breathing down Cade McNamara's neck. Now, could Michigan go to a platoon? It could. I don't think it will, because I just think that Bryce is that talented. So for Mikey Keene, who is not 6'5", who is not like this crazy generational talent, bro, you got to bring it every single day. Because you take a day off, if Bryce Underwood can just bridge that gap that much more, you're that close to being in danger of losing your starting job. Now, I predict that's going to happen at some point. And I understand that Mikey Keene probably thinks the same way, right? He knows what he signed up for. But man, he's the one who's really got to bring it every day. All right, I don't think I can spend that long on all of these, because otherwise we're going to be at like a 45-minute episode. So next, let's go to running back Ben Hall, who I think has just been kind of waiting his turn, finally gets the opportunity in the ReliaQuest Bowl. It seemed like whenever we saw Ben Hall during the season, like last 2 seasons, which was very slim, we saw him more in the spring games. It was like, oh, he looks a heck of a lot better than his 3-star rating. Then he gets his opportunity against Alabama. Now, keep in mind, it was Alabama. No part of the Michigan offense looked like stellar. Jordan Marshall, however, looked a heck of a lot better than Ben Hall. But now that Michigan brings in Justice Haynes, we've seen a little bit of Jordan Marshall. Ben Hall could be that third guy, but certainly Micah Kapana is going to be vying for that, being a more of a speedy rather than a bruising type. So Ben Hall, you've got to figure it out, man. You've got to secure at least that number 3 running back spot. I don't think you're going to be 2 or 1. So you got to figure that out too. Tight end Marlon Klein, one of the starters on this. I have him because even though Michigan doesn't necessarily have anyone waiting in the wings, I don't think he's in danger of losing a starting job. But at least not this year. But like next year, like let's say this season doesn't go the way he wants. He's going to have to figure out, especially being the most athletic tight end in the room, according to everyone that talks, coming out of Schembechler Hall. Marlon Klein, you cannot let, it's funny, again, look at the inverses here from the All-American list to this. I highly recommend that you go and check out that episode too, just so that you understand why I'm saying that. But I had Hogan Hansen as a potential All-American, and I have Marlon Klein on my, bro, you've got to step it up. He was good last year as a compliment, but when Colston Loveland was out, Marlon Klein wasn't exactly out there snagging some passes thrown his way in a way that Colston would. And I don't think he's in danger of losing his job, but I still think he's got to step that up big time. So next, we're going to go with the other starter on this list who is more in danger of losing his job than the other, and that's Evan Link. You know, I gave some kudos to Giovanni Elhadi, who honestly, though, was in the same position as Evan Link. Evan Link was the weakest link. If you remember that show, you are the weakest link. Goodbye. Not to do a play on names, because certainly I don't love it when people do that with my name. But nonetheless, like, he does not seem like a natural tackle. He naturally seems like he'd be an inside guy. And yet they don't really, I would love to see another name that I have on my list win a tackle job and move Evan Link inside to guard. I feel like that would end up precluding him from this list, but like, he cannot have another year the way he just did, where he just looked lost more than half of the time. He cannot afford it, because Michigan's bringing in some really strong offensive linemen via the recruiting class, and you can't necessarily write off freshman tackles, right? We keep in mind we still have Evan Link as a tackle, so it's one of those things like you have to figure it out. Now, this is first year starting, first year playing college football. You can expect, especially in a defensive league like the Big Ten, that there's going to come challenges. So you just hope that he's figured it out enough where he can go into this next year and he can thrive. My last one is another tackle. It's a guy that's gotten a lot of positive mentions, but with Andrew Babalola and Ty Haywood coming in, Andrew Sprague already standing out. If Blake Frazier can get going, right? He seemed like he was injured or something all year. He's been street clothes pretty much the whole year. Nathan Afobe, man, was super excited when Michigan got him, 4-star out of Georgia. Certainly has the look of a guy who should be able to challenge. But, bro, this is kind of your shot, because they've got tackles galore at this point with the two recruits, with Evan Link, with Andrew Sprague, with Blake Frazier. And they've got other guys that look more like guards, like Luke Hamilton, right? So, or Avery Gash. So you have to be able to break out now. This is your shot, because if you can't make it work now, you're in dire straits due to the other people who are coming in after you, who are just maybe more talented. So he is my other one. We got one more offensive guy, and then we're all defense of players who need to shine in 2025. Not ship up or ship out, but pretty close. We will get to the rest of the list here in just a moment. But before we do, this is a message from sponsor Inuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed. All while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Inuit TurboTax. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right. Last offensive player. By the way, doing an hour a day of talking. It seems crazy to me after having both October and January where I had no voice, like the bulk of both months, no voice. Now, perfectly strong. I have never lost my voice before in my life. I'd like, aside from like a day, right? Like you're coughing a lot, you just don't have a strong voice. There'd be episodes we'd miss because I would come on like this, but then it was like, it just wouldn't go away. So it's just crazy to me doing an hour in a day. All right, last offensive player on the list. Players that need to step up. They need to shine in 2025. Amorian Walker, man. This is year 4. Or 2022, 23, 24. Yeah, 25. Year 4. Not surprised didn't see a lot of time as a freshman. 2022, 2023. They move him to defense, oft injured. 2025, hey, we need you at wide receiver. He transfers to Ole Miss. He comes back after a semester. raring to go, doesn't see the field, finally gets a big catch, is so psyched up after getting that big catch at Washington, and disappears off the face of the planet with injury issues. Bro, he is the fastest player on the team, they have said, and he's a unicorn, and he's got the size speed combo you're looking for, and yet hasn't been able to figure it out between the ears, hasn't been able to stay healthy. They're bringing in transfers. They've got other guys. This is your time, Amorian Walker. If not now, I don't know if. That's where I'm at. So now's the time. He's got to step it up. The next one actually had a pretty good year last year. Was kind of a surprise, but wasn't so good that Michigan didn't go and get 2 defensive tackles from the transfer portal in Damon Payne and Trey Williams, and that's Iwunnah. Right? Iwunnah returns after having like a pretty good year. I think we even got him in media. I don't know. I missed some from being sick in October. But Iwunnah is, he's the guy that you're just kind of like, okay, I'd kind of forgotten about him, right? He was a 2021 guy. And you know, he came in with George Rooks, was the late addition, did well, looked good in the bowl game. But when you've got the competition that Michigan has, right? Like you're looking at it, you're saying Rayshawn Benny, you're saying Trey Williams, Damon Payne, you still got Trey Pierce there. Like it's going to be a little bit of a fight. And Iwunnah is going to have to withstand that, as is my next one, who is Etta, who I don't think he's in danger of losing rotational minutes per se. Well, I should say this. I don't think he's in danger of losing a rotational spot, but he is absolutely in danger of losing a rotational minutes. Because of what I just said. Because you've got all these guys. Now, here's the thing, is he was the talk of spring last year, and then we see him in the year, and it just didn't really feel like those things corroborated. We hope that he's not Michael Dwumfor or Donovan Jeter 2.0, right? Where it's like, he's the one that gets all the accolades when it doesn't count, and then when it does count, you just kind of falls off the map. So, again, by virtue of them bringing in 2 defensive tackles, absolutely incumbent upon Etta to find a way to see the field as much as he possibly can. That he's going to have to step it up in a big way. Now, he could push Damon Payne to the bench. He could end up starting next to Rayshawn Benny if everything goes to plan. And I'm sure that is probably what they would like to see. But same things go for Iwunnah as they go for Etta. Both of them absolutely have to step up massively. My next 2 are edge rushers. As you can tell, we're going front to back. Now, the first one I'm going to get to is a name I've mentioned before. The second one is one I have not. So this first one is Keyshawn Bennett, 4-star, New England, has the look of a guy that you would look at. If you looked at him, you saw him in uniform, you saw him walking down the street, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a college football edge rusher. And yet the only time we really saw him in that role last year was in a blowout situation against Northwestern. Another 2021 guy. This is your last chance if you want to have that. Now, if not, have fun on special teams. You've been doing good there. But if you want to join the show, because there's other guys. Now here's the thing. Michigan does not have, like, I really love Derek Moore. I really love TJ Guy. I'm still kind of wait and see with Cam Brandt, Imeric Kumba, Dom Nichols, Devin Baxter, Lugard Idakpai, and who's the other one I'm forgetting? Nate Marshall, the freshman who's coming in. They've got names there now, though. Those are people that we are expecting to step forward. So Keyshawn, now is your chance. If you want an opportunity to be that guy, like, this is it. He is a, like, ship up or ship out type of guy, because this is it. This is your last chance. Same thing for my next one, who's not a name I've mentioned much at all, if at all. And that's Terry McLaurin, who, again, special teams guy, and not nearly as highly rated. 3-star out of Illinois, was highly thought of coming out of Illinois, out of the state of Illinois, as a high school recruit, but was a 3-star. Linebacker who bulked up to edge and just has not been heard from or seen from whatsoever. But based off of all the names I just mentioned, this is it. This is your opportunity. And you have to, like some of these guys like Keyshawn and Terry, you got to figure it out in spring ball. Otherwise, they might go out and find a guy in the portal to just bolster it. It might not be like a highly rated guy, but at the same time, these are the guys that have to step forward. These guys are the ones who have to step up. All right, we're going to continue on. We've got 5 more names to get to. We kind of breezed through those because I think I recognized how long the first segment was going to take. So we got 5 more names. We're going to get to those here in just a moment. All right, who needs to figure things out, particularly in the spring? That's kind of the thing here. It's like you got to get it going in the spring because if you don't have much of a chance in the fall unless you just kill it in summer conditioning. That's the thing about a meritorious style of team, meritocracy, is that you got to bring it every day because someone else is vying for your job. Now, the good news is guys can step up even mid-season. But the bad news is, even if you get that starting job, guys can step it up mid-season and you can lose your job. Heck, we even saw Dom Giudice basically wins the center job, gets injured, and then when he's healthy again, Greg Crippen didn't let go of it. So anything can happen. You got to earn it. 2023, Rod Moore, he had to earn it coming off of an injury. It took him a while because even against Nebraska, when he's finally he was back for the Rutgers game, looked a little rough, comes against Nebraska, still looks a little rough, but by year's end, you're like, that's the Rod Moore I know and love. Took him a bit though. Didn't look fantastic. All right, my next one is a linebacker who has been mentioned quite a bit, and that's Jaden Hood. And I think he did pretty good last year, but nothing to write home about. The problem for Jaden Hood is that pretty good probably not going to cut it. Now, if Jayshon Barham does move to edge permanently, that opens up some opportunities because now you can start next to Ernest Hausman. But if you don't, Troy Bowles just transferred in. That's going to make things that much harder. They just brought in Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who certainly wants to play early. It was part of his rubric, he told me, for things he was looking for from a school. The ability to play early. They still have Jimmy Rolder, who had some injury issues 2 years ago, returned healthy this last year, was more than serviceable, but certainly didn't have a breakout year. Cole Sullivan, you see some of the workout stuff that's going on social media. It's like, right, that he's looking pretty good. Another guy that is a giant at linebacker. So Jaden Hood, if you want to be the dude, you got to figure it out now. My next one is also a linebacker, and it's one whose name I have not mentioned often, and that's Jason Hewlett. Another one of those, I think he was from Youngstown, right? Youngstown or Cincinnati, I don't remember. Another Ohio guy, though. He was one of those ones that committed not too long after the Ohio State win in 2022. So he's part of the 2023 class. So he's not had a lot of time on task, but it's just when you start getting to this point where I'm mentioning your name, and I would venture to guess that half of you, the ones of you who aren't giant recruiting people, that aren't on the boards and following every name and all of that kind of stuff, you probably don't have much of a clue who Jason Hewlett is. Has the look of a big thumping linebacker, not necessarily of the tall side, but he looks like being hit by him does not feel good. But again, we haven't really seen him. So now is kind of your opportunity, and it's I don't want to say it's your last opportunity, but it's time is dwindling. You got to figure that out. That's all I really have to say about him. I don't have much to add because it's just he's kind of a mystery. Kind of like Terry McLaurin from the last segment. It's what can we talk about here? I'm not really sure. Youngstown Cheney, I think, is where he's from. My next one is a guy that I had penciled in as a starter last year and didn't play at all, and it's a transfer. And if it, again, wasn't for the depth, it wouldn't be as much of a problem. That's Jaden Mangum, who came aboard from MSU. I feel like there's something missing outside of the off-field things that kept him, on the field or whatever. Didn't get him on the field. I think that Jaden Mangum is talented, but again, he didn't get to play this last year. That's not great for your development, number one. Number two, Michigan found something in Brandon Hillman and Mason Curtis. Number 3, Michigan brought in TJ and Tevis Metcalf. I think Tevis more goes towards corner, but could be safety. Then you bring in 3 safeties who are 4-stars that certainly want to play early, but none are early enrollees, so that kind of helps. So the room just deepens. It's the deepest room, in my opinion, outside of defensive tackle. Tied for number 1 as far as the deepest room. So with that in mind, Jaden Mangum, former Big Ten starter, played well at MSU. Not amazing enough where Michigan fans were like, oh, we got to go against this guy again. But I don't think his best games came against Michigan. But in-state guy, this is your opportunity, man. I think his dad used to coach my high school, actually. I've heard. Shout out to Rob Taylor, who was yeah, don't you remember? I'm like, I didn't do football, man. How do you not remember that? But Jaden Mangum, he's my safety. He's my sole safety there. Because otherwise, I mean, again, Rodmore and then who else? Could be anyone. It could be, I would look at it, Rodmore and Brandon Hillman. Could be Mason Curtis. Could be TJ Metcalf. So don't be an odd man out. Last 2 are corners. I'm going to go with Josiah Edmond, who has a lot of promise, 4-star from Indiana, who was originally committed to Purdue, was a 3-star, flipped to Michigan. Michigan fans kind of didn't know what to do with it, and then he rises all the way up to 119 in the country, and everyone's like, ooh. Saw him a little bit in the latter half of the season, kind of starting with that Illinois game forward. And again, along with Jair Hill, seemed like he kind of had some off-field things. Seemed like, I don't know if that was together or not, but kind of precluded him from seeing the field. Now, corner is a position of need. That helps him about, quite a bit. But you look at it and you say probably Zeke Berry on one end and Jair Hill on the other. But you better be that third in rotation because you got Shamari Earls waiting in the wings. There's other names that I could add to that, like his fellow 2024 teammate in Jeremiah Lowe, who looks extremely undersized. No offense to Jeremiah Lowe. I feel like with his ranking, his size, it feels unlikely that he sees the field in any meaningful anything. I could also add Ricky Johnson to this, the UNLV transfer, who was struggle busing it when we saw him early and then in street clothes for the rest of the year, but had a pretty good year at UNLV the year prior. So there's still some people there, but it's going to be harder to see the field. And the last one for me is Jaden McBurrows, if he's even still around. 2021 guy, same class, same high school as Jaden Hood, out of Florida. But dude, got to stay healthy. Not always his fault. We think of the MSU tunnel incident. Not exactly Jaden McBurrows' fault that he got injured there. Came in 2023 as a nickel when Mikey Keene still moved out to the edge or to the boundary. And he played very well. I think he can play the position. He had an interception against MSU earlier that year. It's the health thing. So you got to stay healthy. I feel like he would be for sure be the starting nickel. But he's got to stay healthy. And the problem is for him, or not for him, but for Michigan, I don't know if there's an obvious guy behind him that would be as good as him at nickel. Maybe they figured that out with someone. Maybe that's Jeremiah Lowe. I don't know. But man, you gotta stay healthy, Jaden McBurrows. If you're still around, if you're not, just haven't heard anything from him. Like a ghost out there. Anyway, that's going to do it for the episode number 2. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.